Hey, welcome back. Starting your week off with the most important cybersecurity briefing you'll ever hear. In today's edition, attackers targeted everything from enterprise SSO and VMware infrastructure to EV chargers, energy firms, ransomware victims, and even Olympic operations. LogMeIn backdoor phishing campaign is in the news, as well as Windows 11 update causing boot failure, Under Armour breach, a real estate WordPress vulnerability, Okta, Microsoft, and Google targeted phishing attacks, and more. So instead of reading headlines in the recent tedious format, I want this to be more valuable to you, so we're breaking these stories into attacker patterns, MITRE map techniques, defender lessons, and real-world business risk. My hope is this will be more digestible to the CISOs listening, the everyday practitioners, as well as new people breaking into this field of cybersecurity. Let's get into it. Welcome to Threatopia, where we break down real cyber threats, real breaches, and the security patterns that actually matter. I'm your host, Mike Kramer, with 20 plus years of hands-on experience helping organizations stay ahead of real attacks. For those of you watching on YouTube and you notice I have a redness in my eye, don't worry, it's not what you think. I was just bitten by a zombie. Make sure to watch till the end to find out how most attacks begin and today's MITRE attack pattern spotlight. Upcoming events are the RSA conference. That'll be from March 23rd to March 26th at the Moscone Center in San Francisco, California. And SANS 2026 in March 29th through April 3rd in Orlando, Florida at the Hyatt Regency. It's the full SANS curriculum under one roof with over 50 courses and a new AI security training. The security tip of this episode is to not trust emails or messages just because they look internal. Always verify unexpected requests and be on high alert if it involves money, credentials, or urgent action. BEC or business email compromise and phishing is on the rise. Here's a rapid intelligence scan of the most important cybersecurity events this week. Security researchers exposed zero-day vulnerabilities in EV chargers and vehicle infotainment systems, including charger takeover via NFC and IVI exploitation. Latin America reported a 53% year-over-year rise in cyber attacks driven by cybersecurity skills shortages and increased cybercrime activity. A multi-stage phishing campaign in Russia is delivering amnesia rat and ransomware using GitHub, Dropbox, obfuscated scripts, and Windows native tools. The Russian state-backed group Sandworm attempt a cyber attack on Poland's power sector deploying Dino Wiper, though no disruption occurred. CISA confirmed active exploitation of a critical VMware vCenter vulnerability. It's listed as a CVE, enabling remote code execution. CISA also added 4 more vulnerabilities to its KEVs or known exploited vulnerabilities catalog, including Zimbra, Versa SD-WAN, Vite, and NPM packages, including a supply chain compromise. A phishing campaign is turning legitimate LogMeIn RMM tools into persistent backdoors by stealing credentials and installing remote access software. The Osiris ransomware operation used a malicious BYOVD driver to disable security controls before exfiltrating data and encrypting systems. Microsoft reported advanced phishing and BEC attacks targeting energy firms, including MFA bypass and inbox rule manipulation. OpenAI announced upgrades to the ChatGPT temporary chat, adding personalization, retention, and age prediction features. 1Password introduced pop-up phishing warnings to protect users from credential theft. Some Windows 11 devices are failing to boot after January security updates requiring manual recovery. Ouch. North Korean Kony hackers deployed AI-powered PowerShell malware targeting blockchain engineers. The Shiny Hunters Group launched SSO phishing and vishing attacks targeting Okta, Microsoft, and Google accounts. Under Armour is investigating a breach involving 72 million alleged customer records. A Real Homes CRM WordPress plugin vulnerability exposed more than 30,000 websites to possible takeover. And to prevent this type of thing from happening or make it a lot less likely, there is a specific software I recommend. If you go to my website, kramernow.com, I will link to it there and perhaps in the description below. It offers automation, AI, everything all in one place, so it's a lot less likely to have vulnerabilities from the often 30 different plugins you need to run a WordPress site, and I think it's well worth it. Phishing and spoofed websites are expected to be a major cyber threat to the Milano Cortina 2026 Winter Olympics. So now let's break these incidents into patterns, how attackers got in, what they targeted, and what defenders should learn. Across this week's incidents, phishing remains the dominant initial access vector. Recent campaigns tied to phishing and identity compromise were the Amnesia Rat or Remote Access Trojan and ransomware phishing campaign in Russia. Microsoft reported business email compromise and phishing targeting energy firms, the Shiny Hunters SSO phishing and MFA code theft. The LogMeIn RMM or remote monitoring and management phishing installing persistent remote access. The North Korean Kony malware delivered via Discord lure, and Olympics-themed phishing and spoofed websites, the 1Password phishing protection rollout in response to growing abuse. And so, map to MITRE ATT&CK, this week's incidents follow a consistent intrusion pattern: phishing and social engineering for initial access, PowerShell and script-based loaders for execution, credential theft, and MFA bypass for persistence, inbox rule manipulation and session hijacking for stealth, defense evasion through security control tampering, and ransomware or data theft for impact. This is a textbook modern intrusion chain, and we're seeing it repeated across multiple industries and regions. For beginners, this shows attackers rarely hack in, they log in. For practitioners, this reinforces the need to detect identity abuse and post-authentication behavior. For CISOs, this confirms identity security remains one of the highest risk business control areas. So the theme we're seeing in ransomware and defense evasion are that attackers are neutralizing security before encrypting systems. The Osiris ransomware using a malicious BYOVD driver to disable the security tools, the Amnesia Rat disabling Microsoft Defender before the payload execution, and Sandworm's DynoWiper wiper malware targeting energy infrastructure. These incidents show ransomware has evolved from opportunistic encryption to stealthy multi-stage operations that disable defenses, exfiltrate data, and maximize leverage before impact. So looking at the infrastructure and supply chain risk, we see that shared platforms are high impact targets. Some key exposure stories are the VMware vCenter that's actively exploited in the wild, the CISA Kev vulnerabilities affecting Zimbra, the SD-WAN and NPM packages, the supply chain compromise through Trojanized NPM packages, and the WordPress Realhome CRM plugin exposing 30,000 plus sites. We also have those EV chargers and automotive infotainment 0 days. And let's not forget the Windows 11 boot failures following the January updates. As you can see, a single vulnerability in a shared platform can expose tens of thousands of organizations at once, making supply chain and infrastructure security a top-tier risk. Moving on to nation-state and geopolitical threats, we see that cyber operations are strategic power. Some key stories here are the Sandworm attempted attack on Poland's power grid, North Korea's Kony group targeting blockchain engineers, the cyber threat forecast tied to the 2026 Olympics, and the rising cybercrime and skills shortages in Latin America. These campaigns show cyber operations are increasingly used for political influence, economic disruption, espionage, and financial theft, not just crime. So when we review the business impact and data breach risk, we see identity and data exposure drive financial and reputational harm. Today's business impact stories related to this is the Under Armour breach involving 72 million alleged customer records, the SSO compromise granting access across corporate applications, ransomware impacting a major food service franchisee, persistent RMM backdoor abuse enabling long-term access. So for CISOs and executives, these incidents highlight regulatory risk, brand damage, legal exposure, and revenue disruption, not just technical failure. Moving into our Defender lessons of the week, across all 17 stories today, here are the key defensive priorities this week. Harden identity and authentication, use phishing-resistant MFA or multi-factor authentication, monitor inbox rules and session hijacking, detect unauthorized RMM tools, watch for SSO abuse, of course patch critical infrastructure, such as VMware vCenter, Zimbra, Versa SD-WAN, NPM supply chain, and your WordPress plugins for all you realtors out there. Also automotive and IoT platforms. And you want to detect defense evasion. Set up detections for that. Make sure you have them to detect BYOVD driver abuse, Defender tampering, obfuscated PowerShell, scheduled task persistence, or perhaps even new scheduled tasks, and prepare for operational risk, such as test Windows updates before deployment, starting with a small test group, low impact, and moving up from there. You're going to want to maintain offline backups, of course. That's always good, especially for ransomware. Practice incident response for ransomware and wiper attacks. A key mistake here is that organizations will never test it on their most important servers for fear of disruption until the horrible moment when they wish they did. And that brings us to our MITRE pattern of the week. So each episode we highlight one recurring MITRE attack pattern that defenders should recognize from the current attacks we're seeing. This week's dominant pattern is a full intrusion chain starting with phishing for initial access, credential theft and MFA bypass for persistence, PowerShell and trusted tools for execution, security control tampering for defense evasion, and ransomware or data exfiltration for impact. This pattern appeared in the Amnesia Rat campaign, Microsoft's energy sector phishing case, the Shiny Hunters SSO attacks, the LogMeIn RMM backdoor, and the North Korea malware campaign. If you're learning cybersecurity, mastering this attack chain helps you understand how real-world breaches unfold and how you can defend against them. If you're defending organizations, detecting this chain early can prevent data loss, ransomware deployment, and business disruption. That brings us to our security concept of the day. We're going to cover initial access, how most real attacks begin. So most breaches don't start with elite hacking. They start with phishing, stolen credentials, malicious file execution, supply chain compromise, or vulnerable public-facing software. This week alone, we saw initial access through phishing, SSO compromise, RMM abuse, WordPress plugin exploitation, NPM supply chain attacks, and cloud-hosted malware delivery. If you want to break into cybersecurity, learning how attackers get their first foothold is one of the highest impact skills that you can develop. This week's intelligence takeaway is clear. Identity remains the front door, phishing remains the easiest entry point, ransomware is getting stealthier, and infrastructure and supply chains remain high-impact targets. If you want to understand how real attacks work or defend organizations more effectively, Threatopia breaks down cyber risk without the noise. If this episode helped you think more clearly about cyber threats, subscribe for weekly threat briefings and real-world security lessons. With that, I'll see you next time. Stay safe out there.